So Nadrama shows up and basically says, like, there's this holy artifact that I once gave to Cerebos Bellmason. Go and get it. It's somewhere over there. And they're like, okay. And they continue on. So they go on, blah, blah, blah.
Into the Demon's Car.
They go through. It really wasn't that much of an interesting place overall. They fought some hags, killed them. There was a mercenary who they basically went over by being like, whatever they're paying you, we'll pay double.
The mirror elemental. I walked over. I had silent spellcast as one of my abilities.
1 second.
Okay, because I asked you about, because I did a planar roll for mirror, and you're like, yeah, lawful neutral. I was like, okay. So I walk over, and I had silent spellcast, so while I'm negotiating with him real quick, I'm doing this while casting and healing and buffing.
Yeah, so they hire him, and he helps take out the hags, and he knows where Alicast is, goes in there, kills the horrible skeletal creatures that are there, and, chucks the staff at them. Kind of like,
there you go.
All right, pay me my money, and they paid him, and he left.
Yeah.
And he got Alicast, which is this magic item that really need a lot more cool stuff to it than what its stats are in the book. It's just like this. Yep, Bane versus evil extraplaners, anti-demon weapon. Bunk.
Got a little better later on. Not a lot.
Yeah, that was me again.
Yeah. But then we get the Simon Says puzzle.
Oh my word, the Starry Mirror. Okay, so
dumb.
This page here, getting good light on it. Horrible puzzle. You have to go through the colored rooms. There are 6 of them in order, in a specific order, and it doesn't work out well. And that was a pain. So they were going through, and sounds in the background. And I finally just gave it to them and let them get out after an hour of frustration. Because I remember spending 3 hours of frustration, because my DM was 10 times as evil as I could ever be, trying to get through the puzzle. And so they come to this huge encounter with this huge demon who's fighting Alec Turcival. And
tell what sort of ranks in whatever did he have? Because he wasn't just paladin, right? What was he? Because he had ranks in something that was completely useless.
Alec Turcival. Let's see. Looking up at the big index of monsters and random encounters. Yeah. Alec Turcival, a Aristocrat 5. Aristocrat 5. Paladin 4.
No, when we were looking.
A 9th level character with 5 levels in Aristocrat. Worthless. So...
No. He was a black tag.
He got his ass kicked. Then somehow we kicked its ass.
Yep. So...
That was a fun fight.
Killed all of them. Or killed him, the one demon.
Killed all of him.
And ta-da! You're in a desert, 100 miles away from everything. Ha ha!
Yeah.
Minute past 5.
Yeah, that's not
So, aside from that, we had kind of like a me as a DM for you're 100 miles away in the middle of a desert for no reason, and the party's like trying to figure out their way back. So then they run into this area, which I based on a place that Kirk, Georgianne, and I used to work at that we're not too friendly with these days. And that was the ground layout, and they fought these completely neutral jackal-like creatures from the desert supplement book, because I thought they were kind of cool, kind of like, these are like gnolls, but a little bit more diverse, and they have kind of cool history. Except they have this one thing, which is a challenge rating 20 abomination, which they found and decided to let free. And he was like, yep, we'll work together. And it has this howl that anyone who hears the howl has to make a fortitude save or be turned to stone. The entire party got turned to stone. And they were like, party wipe, we're all dead. I was like, no. And then, I did a little bit of waiting. And they were brought back out of being petrified by this guy in a robe who seemed disfigured, claiming that hundreds and hundreds of years have passed by while they are stuck in stone, and everyone they know and love is dead. And at this point, I need to point out that Hannah has a new character since Nails is out, named Laushin, who's this kind of snarky elf noble, who's like, even people I know, he was like, yep, way past the lifespan of elves. He was like, ugh. And so he's like, I freed you so you can help me take back this demonic plane, and we can, free it from its evil ensnarement as it used to be part of the celestial lands.
Now, I do have to ask, was this the point where Fang got a multiple personality?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Fang started being played by a friend of ours, Carlin, who wild-shaped and used all the combat potential, and Kirk's ex-girlfriend, who used all the spellcasting and didn't do anything with combat. So it was like using both half of the druid, and she didn't lose any power.
Yeah, Jess had to start working weekends so she could make games. So
yeah,
but Jess would come in and do all the leveling and all the stats and build the character, just someone else would play it.
Yeah.
So when something new was added that that Sean wasn't sure about, everything would stop, and he'd be like, "It's not their fault. Just doing what's written."
And so we start on the wonderful adventures through the plane of Precipitous, which is this custom realm that they made for Shackled City, which is pretty cool. It has no relevance to anything that's been going on whatsoever. It's just like, yep, Corvan shows up and pretty much is like, yeah, let's go and help out and blah blah blah. And there's a combat encounter which I skipped over because Corvan freed them from being in stone, and I ran things differently. And so they go to Precipitous, and they go to the first place, which is the Cathedral of Feathers. And it has a bunch of encounters there. Best encounter ever is the fact that they decide that Corvan's no good, and Laushin's on one side. Laushin is a swashbuckling rogue, and Doc gets on the other. And they kill Corvan in one hit because they decide he's obviously evil. And I'm like, they just killed their guide to Precipitous. I don't know what to do. Walk into the next room. Fight a giant salamander. Salamanders and the fiery things, not as the amphibian things. And a succubus. The succubus tries to seduce Grayson, fails, and then is like, haha, parlay. And they're like, okay. And then they start fighting the salamanders. The salamander's calling out the succubus as a turncoat, and they kill that. And the succubus and Doc start talking. And eventually they make a contract, and I'm like, contract? And instead of anyone becoming a magical... Well, actually...
Stop it.
She did become a magical girl because she
Stop
started
that.
picking up levels in Sorcerer.
Stop that.
So really, there's no way for me not to be happy about what happened with the succubus.
Just continue.
Who in all of our minds we keep thinking is Etna from Disgaea because she's running around wielding a spear. I did it. You thought it. We all did.
Now it's balance between Etna and the actual succubus, playable.
But, so Sybil, the succubus, ended up becoming a central part of the party because Doc and her made a contract that they'd keep each other alive.
Yep.
And so they went through, la 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 la. I need to reference the book because...
Because we had the choice of fighting one or the other. We went to, the angel side, befriended the angel. Then when like the guy running the test got pissed off, we killed him, and he had this amazing loot for how easy it was to run him over.
Yeah. So there's this mummy lord who cries out like, "Behold the wisdom of Adam Marcus," and blah blah blah, trial, 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 get the smoking eye, and blah blah blah, to become ruler of the plane of Precipitous. The name Adam Marcus doesn't get mentioned till the end of this campaign. So, after this point, so they free the angel, because of course we're gonna free an angel, because not a bad guy. He just got trapped.
He's a little more trusting because there's a celestial walking with the group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they show up, and like the mummy's lord, how dare you go back and do the test right? And so like, no, kill him, get his loot, and then they find out that, hey, you don't actually have to do all this stuff, and they go through the plane of.
We go through the pimple planes.
Plane of Seists, yeah, pimples everywhere. Fight some things, fight some more things.
We fought one of the things we fought fell into fire on his own accord. We didn't even have to touch him.
No, that was later.
No, it's still the same chapter.
Fought a black dragon, not the black dragon that has sex with Kotoas and everything else.
Different black dragon.
Finally, they get through. They find this fallen angel who they talk to, and he reveals, no, you only have to do the third test. You don't have to do all the ones, because the second test, they had to go through these weird, just kind of walk along this path without stopping, which there's like lots of treasure along the path to distract them and everything else. You never did go back for that.
We never did.
But, so the fallen angel's like, yeah, you only need to do the third test. You can skip the first two. And someone's like, what? What? And she's all upset about this because she wanted to just be able to be done with it. But go on. They fight a Nexas and a fire giant.
Fucking fire giants.
Yeah.
We skipped over that part when I actually went rage.
Yeah.
Yeah, back at the Demon Scar, my character got killed. Again, there was no res anything. And I just went full... Because I figured I thought what happened was it was rolled DM choice and you threw me a bone. And that if I was going to be reincarnated again, I was going to end up as, like, human.
Yeah.
Or I just wasn't going to get rezzed at all. And I was pissed. And I just, just had, like, one of those fuck it moments. And so I was like, wait, no. Because there was a scroll of resurrection.
Yeah.
Amongst the stuff that this guy drops, there's a scroll of resurrection. I was like, okay. Give me a chance to rewrite my character sheet though.
Which I did.
Yeah.
Because I'm a good DM.
Because you're nice. And
I
show up to all games.
Herding cats. So much issue with 6 players. I will never run a campaign with 6 players like this again. Ever. But
anyway, I digress.
They get to the final test and they fight a guy, and there's like a bunch of fire pillars around, and he accidentally trips and falls into one and dies.
It was specifically Blackfire though, right?
Yeah, Blackfire.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he rolled a wall and just fell in fire. And like, oh, don't have to worry about that one.
Yep. And then there's this whole thing with like the final test and the Mummy Lords explaining that one of you has to be sacrificed in order to gain control of the plane. And Grayson decides to walk into it. Probably because Ben's tired of yet another character.
Yeah.
But he goes whoosh and accidentally becomes the ruler of this plane.
Gets the whole Blackrock shooter eye going on, and which is just how I kept referring to it.
Yeah, Blackrock shooter.
Blackrock shooter. And he took like weird fucking like abilities when you did that too. Yeah. Like negative energy. Which I had no sir. I had a lot of fun with that one campaign where you let him have that. He went ow.
He took Tomb Tainted Soul and then went into the Necromancer base class from the Libra Mortis. Now, there's some controversy in D&D about whether or not the Necromancer touch used on someone with Tomb-Tainted Soul, if they're doing the touch themselves, can heal themselves. It literally becomes they can cast, they can restore 1d8 plus X amount of HP at will each turn. And I didn't realize that combo when he was doing stuff, because 6 players, I'm not going to check every single last thing. But then he started doing it, and I started saying, like, no, I'm not okay with this. And I had to basically put my foot down as DM and be like, no. DM says no. It worked last game because I didn't understand it. But now that I did my research, no. We'll call it weird temporal things. And he eventually decided to go back and retroactively choose a different feed. The problem was that he went with 1 feat from Hero of Horrors and a base class from Libra Mortis, which 2 books written by 2 different people don't necessarily mesh well in running D&D. No. But that aside, they went into the next adventure, which is more city-based things. They're finally back in the material plane.
This is probably the best place to stop because we're reaching the point.
So, Chapter 7, The Secret of the Soul Pillars. So they came back from Precipitus and they got things arranged. Sybil went to work in the Koinixie, and Colbert came back, and everyone was like, "You're a celestial being!" And there was a lot of rejoicing, and a lot of the parishioners were like, "This is a sign from the gods!" And mysteriously, the Temple of Palor is closed, and no one's saying anything about it.
No idea what happened there.
So there are now 3 churches in the city. The Church of St. Cuthbert, which is doing pretty well. The Church of Cord, the god of strength, who is kind of sitting around being like, some of our guys really should be doing what the Elective Knights are doing. And then the Temple of Ouija's, who basically are a bunch of snooty clerics. And then in the Koinixie, when the party gathers one night, they get attacked by assassins.
No, it was at the church.
Oh, church, right. Sorry, I forgot where that happened.
Yeah.
So they got attacked by assassins. Put them down pretty quick. And was that your first use of Speak with Dead?
Yes. Yeah, because I hadn't bothered to get it beforehand.
After some prodding, I managed to convince them to pick up Speak with Dead. And they found out that these assassins were sent by the Church of Ouija's. So, of course, they're like, okay, let's go downtown and see what this is. So they go to the Temple of Ouija's, and they get in to find a bunch of monsters in the sanctuary. Like, the Temple of Ouija's had closed itself for construction, and there's supposed to be this whole to-do with the Temple of Palor complaining that the Temple of Ouija's was blocking out the sun from shining on their shrine and blah, blah, blah. But that temple wasn't around anymore because the party killed that cleric.
Yep.
Not much to be said about that.
No.
So, while the Temple of Ouija's was under construction, they entered it. And really, in the main worship chamber, having a bunch of monsters, I don't know why, but they do. So the party killed them. They kind of wandered around a bit. And they found the resurrection slabs where they found one of the members of the rival group, which they were like, well, let's destroy the body so they can't do anything to it. I'm snickering, being like, oh, this will cause some trouble off screen. And then they go around, and finally they go up to the top, where they find Ike Iverson, as well as some gray render zombies, so they're huge zombies, a bone devil, which instantly points out and goes like, Sarabar, and a dread wraith.
Now the dread wraith. This is one that I think jumped us, if I remember correctly, because something put up an ice. Like there's the room, and then there's 2 of us off to the side. It was me and
It was Doc.
It was Doc. Okay, it was me and Doc, who were cut off from the rest of the party. And we're like, okay, it sucks. We'll just, break through the ice. And then right next to me, in like this little 4 square room that we're stuck in, this little asshole pops up.
Dead Wraith goes through the wall.
Yep.
And he gave you a special touch.
Yeah, it did.
And so our mighty cleric fell to a wraith.
Yep.
And actually, you came up as a wraith, didn't you?
Did I?
And I think they did, and they put you down. And then they resurrected you. Now, if I really wanted to be a jerk, I could have had your wraith go away, so they couldn't have. But I'm not that mean. So they do that. They find out a bunch of research materials that they happen to keep.
Destroy their church.
Yeah, destroy their church. So now we have two churches: the Church of Cord and the Church of St. Cuthbert.
This town's getting better every day.
Yeah, all one of the thieves' guilds is just.
Oh, that's right. We didn't get to, or did that not happen yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
So they find some research notes that talk about Krang Koral, which have these soul pillars in it. So they take a nice little walk off through the Demon Scar again. And there are these 6-armed creatures called the Spellweavers, which had an ancient civilization in the area. They're all into ice magic and necromancy and blah blah blah. So they go through, there's some encounters.
Nothing huge that I remember really.
There was an ice devil that thing really wanted to kill the wolf animal companion, Axel. Really wanted
that
to kill
companion
him.
is still alive. The wolf companion from the very beginning of the game, still there. Still there, won't die.
Yep.
He tried. A lot.
Dragon breath weapons, nothing.
No, had all the evasion on it and just kept making its rolls.
Yep. So, encounters. Oh, yeah, and then the Iron Golem. Which they couldn't
That poor jerk.
They couldn't land a hit on it, and then they saw that there was a chute behind it, so they all basically jumped down the chute. And they fell, and it was a 20-foot drop. So they're like, do 6 points of damage. That it.
A lot less than the golem would have done.
Yeah.
And then the chute's too small for the golem, so the golem's kind of oh, come on! I'm gonna get fired.
Yep. And so they wander around. They eventually come to this library of souls where the Spellweavers took human bodies and put kind of glyphs all over them and really creepy. And if you touch them and do some meditation, you can tap into all this dark knowledge. And Doc X Laxon got some pretty powerful shadow magic from it. And actually, I allowed him to take a feat from Forgotten Realms, the Shadow Weave, which I love the Shadow Weave because it's this little side thing for magic that boosts illusion and enchantment and necromancy spells and hurts all the other spells. But it's kind of a cool little thing. And since he was a beguiler and had illusion magic, and that was his thing, awesome. Plus he got Shadow Daggers, which is a custom spell from this book, and
that helped a lot.
It's Paizo.
Yeah.
Paizo does not necessarily have balanced things all the time. This is a spell that, you summon a Spectral Dagger. You stab someone with it, they need to make a will save. If they fail the will save, they take a d6 points of damage, up to 10d6. And that's per caster level. Now, we looked at it and we thought about it. That's per each attack with this thing. So if you have a character that's doing 2 to 3 attacks, that's 2 will saves they have to make versus 10d6 each time. Oh, but Doc X Laxon was a Florentine fighter. Quicken spell. Shadow Dagger, Shadow Dagger. Stab, stab, stab. Paizo, why?
Now, in all fairness, I think a lot of things made their will save against him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it very rarely went off nasty.
But it was still nice enough that it really did some damage. Then you guys ran into Fetor Aberdius, who was one of the Cage Rights, I think he was more confused than
Yeah, because
anything
we were
else.
in his room when he wasn't there, and we started looking through his shit. And then he kind of opens the door, looks at us like... He just starts taking off down the hall.
And then the party comes up and takes him down.
Yeah.
He was trying to do some fancy spell work and just could not pull off anything worth his life.
No.
So, Cage Right, one of the big bads, one down.
Yeah. Now, we did get... I can't remember how we got warned of it beforehand. It was like one of the things we didn't kill warned us that there was a skeletal dragon. Later on.
Yeah,
I can't remember what...
bargain
Demon.
with someone.
I can't remember who...
Oh, yeah, it was the Ice Demon because I think you guys fought him down and he was kind of like, I give. And he tipped you off to a lot of the things going on.
Yeah.
And I think this was around the time Eamon took over playing Fang.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That time.
So
Fang's fourth personality showed up.
yeah. And unfortunately, Eamon's playstyle, for being a completely brand new player, he got the magic using aspect and the combat aspect down. And he worked a lot with Jess on how to properly use Fang. So, you know, it's from this point onward that I don't like Druids anymore as a DM. They can do too much.
That all
But-
being said, his RP could use some work.
Well, one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And new players are always going to suffer in that. So there was another little encounter, and they found a soul pillar. Soul pillar is this big necromantic construct with like, here's a picture of one with a bone naga wrapped around it. Kind of necromantic, has a bunch of corpses kind of poking its way through the stone. And the thing is that if you meditate into it, you can gain access to knowledges and ask questions of the spirits trapped within. Now, Grayson, Ben's character, was obsessed with this because he wanted more necromancy stuff.
That's right.
I still think it's funny that when Brian got to the Library of Souls area and like tapped into it and Doc got his crazy shadow magic, that he was like, oh well, there's a ton of necromancy here. Turned to Grayson, yeah, there's nothing really of interest. And Grayson bought it and they walked on. That's hilarious because I was glaring at Ben the entire time being like, your character runs counterintuitive to what the party's about. So, yeah. But going onward, fought a Dracolich who... This one, I literally took some pot shots at Axel. Like, I really tried.
Yeah, he did. He went out of his way to try and make sure, like, Axel was in cones and took an extra swipe at Axel. And
Nothing. So they killed the Dracolich, destroyed the phylactery.
And it was also at this point, like, because I'd cast Windwalk on everyone.
Yeah.
Because we'd gotten a basic layout that said there was a big hole in the middle of the room. So I was like, okay, Windwalk, and if the dragon starts to fly off, then we can kind of run up to it. This was when I really started noticing the amount of, like, just running around Ben's character did. Because he got that, like, he had that one ability where, like, he increased stats if he ran around and moved prior. And I just remember seeing him bounce back and forth in the room just until the thing was dead. And just couldn't help but think how stupid it would look.
The Scout's skirmish ability, which that's what he used for his archer. Scouts are a very silly class. I don't like them too much now that I've seen one being used. It makes much more sense that you just go straight archer. But that's neither here nor there. It's like trying to make a ranger rogue, and it's quirky, and
So, killed the Dragon Lich. We took the... Did we take the phylactery?
you destroyed the flag.
Yeah, destroyed it. Okay.
So it couldn't come back.
Yeah.
Fortunately, he did not take the Lord Voldemort approach with 7 more hit in the round. Or 6 more. So that's always good. And then more meditating with the soul pillar, trying to get weird answers. Grayson got his intelligence knocked down to 10 temporarily because he was trying to find dark necromancy secrets and he did not make his saves. Hannah's character Laushin did something interesting though, because he was another worshiper of the Electrum Dragon. And the Electrum Dragon actually was very impressed by the group at this point and reached out and said, "Yes, you were doing quite well. Now I'm charging you with a holy quest to go and buy an orphanage and foreclose upon it." Now, the only orphanage in town was the one that's managed by St. Cuthbert, so this is going to be very funny. So Laushin was like, "Oh, this isn't good at all." And so the party went back to town, did the normal in-town thing. Colbert harassed Jenya, Fang did the shopping, Doc went back and saw how Sybil the Succubus and his goblins were doing.
No, I was because when we left, we found out that in order to actually destroy soul pillars, we needed to boost the staff.
Yeah.
So first thing Colbert did was went back and started like researching that, and I was obsessed with trying to get back there and break those pillars, like obsessed with it up until a point where I really didn't have any other choice but to just go with the flow.
Yeah. So.
Oh, we're good. Okay.
So eventually they found out that there was this hidden shrine in the lake, which Fang, Colbert, and was it Doc?
No. Because remember what happened during this.
And so they went swimming using breathe water and everything else. Fang got to enjoy a nice squid form or octopus form, I forget which.
Giant squid.
Giant squid.
Yeah.
So they fought the Crater Lake monster, which was a Morkoth. Something from the Monster Manual too, because this book loves the Monster Manual too. That and the Fiend Folio. So they killed that. Actually, I think the Morkoth was Fiend Folio.
No, we killed it, but not before it took down Grayson.
Yep.
And Grayson was at like -7.
Yeah.
So no, because I had to res him, so he was way below that. So there was like a turn or two before combat ended, and we couldn't res him in the middle of water.
Yeah.
Because it would take too long, and before we had a chance to really do anything else, because he runs plane of Vociferous, pop back to his plane, dead.
Yep. And he was removed from the campaign.
Yep. So there's another Ben character down.
Yep.
Ben character 2.5.
And they managed to go and do this whole cool ceremony with Awakening Alicast and getting some bonus spells castable once per day.
I think the staff either became like a +3 or something. Had and all these little bonuses.
Banishment.
It had a circle of protection.
Yep. So I made this really awesome artifact nice, as opposed to it's +1 and is Bane versus Evil Outsiders.
Yeah. Ooh. And I was all psyched to have that staff. I was like, okay, break soul pillars. And then there's the discussion of what we should do then. It was like either go break the soul pillars or we had some other option available to us, didn't we?
There was the other thing with Grayson was actually approached by a cleric of Nerul to join up with the Cage Rights and betray his party at this gathering of villains at Tifran Rivaldi, who's a noble, her place. And they learned about this whole plot. And Sybil was the one who actually read Grayson's mind before they went to the temple and he died forever. And Sybil decided to mess with the party because Colbert was off with Grayson having this conversation and Sybil was listening in with her telepathy and creatively told half-truths to the rest of the party who did not suspect her at all at any point. And the party, the other 4 people were sitting there planning to kill Grayson while Grayson was making amends with Colbert and being like, yeah, we're working together and blah, 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 blah. It's a shame because Sybil really wanted to see the party kill Grayson and was so disappointed to find out that he died in the lake. And that's why you guys didn't go back to the Soul Pillar, because there wasn't time.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that happened during that downtime was Hannah playing Laoshin was going around like crazy, thinking about, well, I can't buy the orphanage. What if I buy another building and make an orphanage and close it? Aha! I've tricked the system. As DM, I was like, but good thinking on her part. So she went and bought a very rundown building in the poor part of town that had a thieves guild in it. And she snuck all the way around using hide in plain sight because I allowed her to have the ninja spy from Oriental Adventures as just a spy because I don't allow Oriental classes. And she was sneaking around using hide in plain sight and like spying around, and then found out that it was the Last Life Thieves Guild. And then came out, got everyone together. It was like, I found the Last Life Thieves Guild.
We set the place on fire.
Sybil flying overhead, raining down fireballs. They set up walls of forces around it so they couldn't escape. Most of the Last Thieves Guild died in the fire, including one Cage Right, because he did not make his saves. He crit failed like everything that I threw him. And then Jill and 2 other assassins popped out and the party just shanked them.
Fuck her.
So that's the end of Jill.
Yeah.
Which, when I played through it, she actually became friends with the PCs and ended up in like a romantic relationship with our thief. But
nope.
You guys, complete enemy killer.
Pissed her off. I'm okay with that.
It is weird. Coming back years later as a DM, going through this, being like, seeing a character who like really grew close to, well, not really close to one of mine, but one of my party's characters being treated in such a way, it's like, no! But she really was a villain.
Yeah.
So, very interesting from my perspective, but they don't know anything about it.
So,
right.
we're going to pause here before we start taking down the big named folks.